Last night on Jimmy Kimmel Live, a fiery clash erupted between host Jimmy Kimmel and billionaire Elon Musk, spiraling into a viral storm of insults and drama that ended with Musk ripping off his mic and storming off set, leaving viewers stunned. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button for more explosive stories like this. The stage was set for chaos from the moment Musk walked out, his trademark grin masking the tension that would soon explode. Kimmel, known for his sharp wit and fearless jabs, greeted Musk with a smile that barely hid his intent. The audience, buzzing with anticipation, sensed the undercurrent of hostility. Musk, fresh off a whirlwind of headlines about his ambitious ventures, was riding high, but Kimmel was ready to take him down a peg. The interview began cordially enough, with Kimmel tossing softballs about Tesla's latest innovations and SpaceX's recent launches. Musk, ever the showman, leaned into his visionary persona, charming the crowd with tales of colonizing Mars and revolutionizing transportation. But the mood shifted when Kimmel's questions turned pointed, his tone laced with a biting edge. "So, Elon," Kimmel said, leaning forward with a smirk, "you're out here trying to save the planet with Tesla, but those stock prices are looking like they're on a one-way trip to the moon, and not in a good way. What's the deal?" The audience laughed, but Musk's smile tightened. He deflected, citing market volatility and Tesla's long-term vision, but Kimmel wasn't letting up. "Come on, man, your cars are great, but half the time they're driving themselves into ditches. Autopilot? More like auto-oops." The crowd roared, and Musk's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. Kimmel, sensing blood in the water, pressed harder, mocking the Cybertruck's delayed production. "That thing looks like it was designed by a kid playing Minecraft. When's it actually hitting the roads, 2030? Musk tried to laugh it off, but his responses grew curt, his patience visibly fraying. Kimmel, emboldened by the audience's energy, pivoted to SpaceX, taking aim at Musk's Martian dreams. "You're gonna live on Mars? Bro, you can't even fix Twitter's algorithm, and you think you're gonna build a city on a planet with no air?" The audience erupted, but Musk's face darkened. He leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. "You know, Jimmy, it's easy to sit there and crack jokes when you've never built anything that matters." The crowd gasped, the tension palpable. Kimmel's eyes gleamed with mischief, undeterred by Musk's jab. The exchange marked the first crack in what would become a full-blown fracture. Musk, usually unflappable, was rattled, his composure slipping as Kimmel's relentless mockery chipped away at his carefully curated image. The billionaire, who'd faced scrutiny from regulators and critics alike, wasn't used to being so publicly dismantled on live TV. Kimmel, meanwhile, reveled in the moment, feeding off the audience's energy and Musk's growing discomfort. The host's barbs weren't just personal. They were calculated, each one designed to provoke a reaction, to peel back the layers of Musk's enigmatic persona and expose the man beneath. As the segment progressed, the atmosphere grew heavier, the light-hearted banter giving way to something sharper, more vicious. Kimmel's jabs about Tesla's stock plunge, down 10% that day alone, hit a nerve. "Your investors are probably watching this, Elon, wondering if they should have put their money in Dogecoin instead," Kimmel quipped, drawing another wave of laughter. Musk's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles whitening. He fired back, accusing Kimmel of pandering to the crowd, of knowing nothing about innovation or risk. "You're a talk show host, Jimmy. Stick to telling jokes," Musk snapped. The audience oohed, sensing the escalating drama, but Kimmel was unfazed, his grin widening as he prepared his next blow. By now, social media was ablaze, clips of the confrontation spreading like wildfire. Viewers at home were glued to their screens, tweeting furiously about Musk's icy demeanor and Kimmel's savage takedowns. The hashtag #KimmelVsMusk was trending, with fans and critics alike weighing in on the unfolding spectacle. On set, The energy was electric, the audience hanging on every word, every glance, every shift in body language. Neither man was backing down, and the clash was far from over. What would Kimmel say next to push Musk closer to the edge? Social media was a battlefield, with your Kimmel vs. Musk trending worldwide as clips of Jimmy Kimmel's relentless jabs at Elon Musk ricocheted across the internet. Viewers were captivated, their phones lighting up with notifications as they dissected Musk's frosty glares and Kimmel's razor-sharp wit. On the Jimmy Kimmel live set, the air crackled with tension, the audience's anticipation a living thing, feeding the growing hostility between the two men. Every word was a landmine, every pause a prelude to detonation. Kimmel, his eyes glinting with the thrill of the fight, wasn't about to let Musk catch his breath. "So, Elon," Kimmel said, his voice dripping with mock curiosity, "let's talk about Neuralink. You're putting chips in people's brains. Now? What's next? Turning us all into your personal Roomba army." The audience howled, but Musk's face was stone, his lips a thin line. He shifted in his seat, his fingers tapping restlessly on the armrest. "You don't get it, Jimmy," Musk said, his tone clipped. "Neuralink is about advancing humanity, not making sci-fi horror movies for your monologue." The crowd murmured, sensing the billionaire's rising irritation, but Kimmel was relentless, leaning closer, his smile predatory. "Advancing humanity? Half your projects sound like you're auditioning to be the next Bond villain. I mean, come on, brain chips. What's the return policy on those?" The laughter was deafening. But Musk wasn't laughing. His eyes burned with a mix of anger and disbelief, as if he couldn't fathom being so openly ridiculed. He tried to pivot, touting Neuralink's potential to cure neurological disorders, but Kimmel cut him off, waving a hand dismissively. Sure, but let's be real, Elon. Your track record's a little shaky. Remember the Boring Company? You were gonna solve traffic with tunnels. Now it's just a fancy parking lot for your Tesla showroom." The audience roared, and Musk's composure cracked further, his voice rising as he shot back, "You're cherry-picking failures, Jimmy. Every innovator takes risks. What have you ever risked besides a bad punchline?" The jab landed and the crowd gasped, a few cheers mixing with the nervous laughter. Kimmel's grin didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed, a spark of genuine annoyance flashing through them. He leaned back, feigning calm, but his next words were venomous. "Risk? Oh, I'm risking plenty right now, sitting here trying to make sense of your PowerPoint fever dreams. Like, what's with the Hyperloop? You sold that idea like it was gonna change the world, and now it's just a dusty tube in the desert." Musk's face flushed, his hands clenching into fists. "The Hyperloop is still viable," he snapped, but Kimmel was already moving on, his voice rising to match the audience's energy. "Viable? Like your Twitter takeover? You paid $44 billion to turn a social network into a dumpster fire. Congrats, man, that's a world-class faceplant." The crowd erupted, some cheering, others booing, the divide between Musk's defenders and detractors palpable. Musk's eyes darted to the audience, then back to Kimmel, his expression a mix of fury and betrayal. "You're obsessed with tearing things down," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "You don't understand what it takes to build something real." Kimmel shrugged, unfazed, his tone mocking. "Maybe not, but I know a sinking ship when I see one. Tesla's stock is tanking, your projects are stalling, and you're out here promising cities on Mars. Maybe stick to Earth for a while, huh?" The audience was on its feet now, the energy chaotic, electric. Musk's breathing was shallow, his knuckles white as he gripped the chair. Kimmel, sensing he had the upper hand, pressed on, his words sharp enough to cut glass. "Look, Elon, I get it. You're a big dreamer. But dreams don't pay the bills when your shareholders are jumping ship. What's the plan when Tesla's worth less than a used Prius?" Musk's eyes widened, his voice shaking with barely contained rage. "You're crossing a line, Jimmy," he warned, but Kimmel only smirked, ready to push him further. The confrontation was spiraling, and the world was watching, waiting for the breaking point. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio was a powder keg, the audience's roars fueling the escalating war between Jimmy Kimmel and Elon Musk. Social media was a frenzy. Kimmel vs. Musk climbing higher as clips of Kimmel's savage taunts and Musk's seething reactions flooded every platform. Musk's grip on his chair was iron tight, his face a mask of barely restrained fury as Kimmel's latest jab about Tesla's plummeting stock hung in the air. "You're crossing a line, Jimmy," Musk had warned, his voice trembling with rage, but Kimmel's smirk only widened, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt. The host was in his element, the crowd's energy surging through him as he prepared to land another blow. "Crossing a line?" Kimmel said, his tone mockingly incredulous. "Elon, you've been crossing lines since you started tweeting memes about your own stock. What's the deal, man? You tanking Tesla on purpose to buy it back cheap?" The audience erupted, laughter mixing with gasps at the audacity. Musk's eyes flashed, his jaw working as he struggled to keep his cool. "You're talking about things you don't understand," he shot back, his voice sharp, cutting. "Tesla's building the future. You're just building punchlines." The crowd oohed, but Kimmel was unfazed, leaning forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "The future? Oh, please. Your future's looking like a clearance sale. I bet your board's already shopping for a new CEO on LinkedIn." The laughter was thunderous, but Musk's face was a storm cloud, his breathing ragged. He leaned forward, pointing a finger at Kimmel. "You think this is a game, Jimmy? I've got thousands of people depending on me, millions invested in my vision. What do you have? A desk and a microphone." The audience gasped, the raw edge in Musk's voice slicing through the noise. Kimmel's grin faltered for a split second, a flicker of irritation crossing his face before he recovered, his tone icy. "A desk and a mic? Yeah, and an audience that's eating this up. You want to talk vision? Let's talk about Starlink. You're charging people to beam Wi-Fi from space, but my cousin's dial-up in Nebraska works better." The crowd roared, some cheering, others jeering, the divide in the room palpable. Musk's hands shook as he gripped the armrests, his voice low, venomous. "Starlink's connecting the world, Jimmy. You wouldn't know progress if it slapped you in the face." Kimmel laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. "Connecting the world? You can't even connect with your own PR team. Every time you open your mouth, Tesla's stock drops another 10 points. You're a walking short seller's dream." The audience was electric, feeding off the hostility, their phones capturing every second of the meltdown. Musk's eyes narrowed, his voice a growl. "Keep talking, Jimmy, you're digging your own grave." The threat hung heavy, the studio buzzing with tension. Kimmel, undeterred, leaned back, his smile taunting. "My grave? Nah, I'm just getting started. Let's talk about your X platform. You turned Twitter into a free-for-all for bots and trolls. What's the plan? Make it the official app of chaos?" Musk's face reddened, his patience fraying to threads. "X is about free speech," he snapped, "something you clearly don't value." Kimmel shrugged, his tone mocking. "Free speech? More like free fall. Your platform's a mess, your stocks are a disaster, and you're out here pretending you're the king of the future. Newsflash, Elon, even your fans are starting to jump ship." The audience was on its feet, the energy chaotic, frenzied. Musk's breathing was shallow, his eyes burning with a mix of rage and desperation. Kimmel's relentless onslaught was stripping away his defenses, each jab landing harder than the last. The billionaire, used to commanding boardrooms and headlines, was unraveling under the spotlight, his empire mocked on live TV. Kimmel, sensing the kill, prepared his next strike, his words ready to push Musk past the point of no return. The world was watching, phones recording, tweets flying, all waiting for the moment the billionaire would snap. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio was a cauldron of chaos. The audience's roars a deafening backdrop to the escalating war between Jimmy Kimmel and Elon Musk. Kimmel vs. Musk was a global firestorm. Clips of Kimmel's brutal takedowns and Musk's crumbling composure dominating every corner of the internet. Musk's eyes blazed with fury, his shallow breaths betraying the storm raging within as Kimmel's relentless mockery tore through his defenses. The billionaire, once untouchable, was unraveling, his empire ridiculed on live television. Kimmel, his grin sharp as a blade, sensed the endgame and leaned in, ready to deliver a blow that would shatter Musk's resolve. "Elon, let's be real," Kimmel said, his voice a mix of scorn and glee. "You're out here playing Tony Stark, but your projects are starting to look like box office flops. Take the Tesla bot. You're building robots now? What, to clean up the mess from your Cybertruck delays?" The audience erupted, laughter crashing like waves, but Musk's face was a mask of rage, his hands trembling as he gripped the chair. "You're clueless, Jimmy," he spat, his voice raw. "The Tesla bot's about revolutionizing labor, not your cheap laughs." Kimmel's eyes gleamed, undeterred. "Revolutionizing labor? Those things look like they'd trip over a Roomba. Your shareholders are probably praying for a Roomba merger just to save the stock." The crowd roared, the energy frenzied, electric. Musk's jaw clenched, his voice low, dangerous. "You're mocking people's livelihoods, Jimmy. Thousands work for me, building things you can't even comprehend." Kimmel leaned forward, his tone cutting. "Comprehend? Oh, I comprehend plenty. I comprehend Tesla's stock is in free fall because you're too busy tweeting memes to run a company. What's next? A Dogecoin-powered spaceship." The audience howled, but Musk's eyes were wild, his patience a frayed thread. "You're a parasite, Kimmel," he snapped, feeding off other people's work for claps from a crowd. The crowd gasped, the venom in Musk's voice slicing through the noise, but Kimmel's smile only widened, his next jab already loaded. "Parasite? That's rich coming from the guy who's been milking hype for years," Kimmel shot back. "Let's talk about your Solar City deal. You bailed out your cousin's company with Tesla cash, and now it's a black hole. Great business move, Elon. Maybe you should stick to cameo roles in Iron Man." The audience was on its feet, the laughter tinged with shock at the personal dig. Musk's face flushed crimson, his voice shaking. "Solar City's part of a bigger vision. You wouldn't understand sacrifice or strategy." Kimmel laughed, a cold, biting sound. "Sacrifice? Your investors are the ones sacrificing, watching their portfolios burn while you're out here promising flying cars. When's that Roadster 2.0 dropping, by the way? Or is it still parked next to your Hyperloop dreams?" The studio was a pressure cooker, the audience feeding off the raw hostility. Musk's breathing was erratic, his knuckles white as he leaned forward, his voice a growl. "You're out of your depth, Jimmy. You're embarrassing yourself." Kimmel's eyes narrowed, his tone icy. "Embarrassing? Nah, that's you, Elon. You're the one who's got to explain to your board why Tesla's worth less than a TikTok influencer's crypto scam. Your whole genius shtick is crumbling, and we're all just watching the rerun." The crowd erupted, cheers and boos colliding in a chaotic symphony. Musk's eyes darted to the audience, then back to Kimmel, his expression a mix of rage and disbelief. "You're pathetic," he hissed, but Kimmel was relentless, his voice rising. "Pathetic? Look in the mirror, man. Your empire's a house of cards, and I'm just the guy pointing out the wind." The tension was unbearable, the studio a live wire. Musk's hands shook, his composure hanging by a thread, as Kimmel's words cut deeper, each one a calculated strike at his legacy. The billionaire, used to adoration and control, was cornered, his breaking point inches away. Kimmel, fueled by the crowd's frenzy, was poised to push him over the edge, his next words ready to ignite the final spark. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio was a crucible of raw emotion, the audience's fevered energy amplifying the brutal showdown between Jimmy Kimmel and Elon Musk. Kimmel vs. Musk was a digital inferno, with millions glued to their screens, sharing clips of Kimmel's merciless jabs and Musk's unraveling facade. Musk's hands trembled, his eyes blazing with a volatile mix of rage and desperation, as Kimmel's calculated attacks shredded his carefully crafted image. The billionaire, once a titan of industry, was teetering on the edge, his legacy under siege on live television. Kimmel, fueled by the crowd's manic cheers, leaned forward, his voice a sharpened blade, ready to deliver the strike that would break Musk completely. "Elon, let's cut the crap," Kimmel said, his tone icy, venomous. "You're out here selling dreams, but your track record's a nightmare. Remember the Tesla Semi? You promised fleets of electric trucks by now. Where are they? Parked next to your dignity?" The audience roared, laughter laced with shock, but Musk's face was a furnace, his voice a low growl. "The semi's coming, Jimmy. You don't know the first thing about logistics or innovation." Kimmel's grin was predatory, his eyes locked on Musk's. "Innovation? Oh, you're innovating, all right. Innovating new ways to disappoint. Your stock's crashing harder than a SpaceX prototype. How's that feel, knowing your empire's bleeding out on the NASDAQ?" The crowd erupted, the energy chaotic, unhinged. Musk's breathing was ragged, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were bone-white. "You're a clown, Kimmel," he spat, his voice shaking with fury. "You mock what you can't understand, what you'll never be part of." Kimmel leaned back, his laugh cold, cutting. "A clown? Maybe, but I'm not the one juggling failing companies on live TV. Let's talk about your AI obsession. XAI? You're building robots to think for us, but you can't even think your way out of a bad earnings call." The audience was on its feet, the laughter deafening, but Musk's eyes were wild, his composure a frayed thread. "XAI's about the future," he snapped. "Something you're too small-minded to grasp." Kimmel's eyes narrowed, his tone dripping with scorn. "Small-minded? Nah, I'm just calling it like I see it. Your future's a fantasy, Elon. Tesla's stock is toast, your projects are punching bags, and you're out here pretending you're the second coming of Edison. Spoiler: Edison didn't need a PR team to spin his flops." The crowd gasped, the personal dig landing like a sledgehammer. Musk leaned forward, his voice a hiss. "You're nothing, Jimmy. A loudmouth with a teleprompter. I've built things. That'll outlast you and your cheap jokes." Kimmel's smile was razor-sharp, his response immediate. "Outlast me? Your companies might not outlast this segment. Tesla's down another 5 points just since you sat down. You're not building legacies, Elon. You're building punchlines." The studio was a pressure cooker, the audience feeding off the raw hostility. Musk's face was crimson, his hands shaking as he pointed at Kimmel. "You're pathetic," he growled. "Tearing down people who actually matter." Kimmel shrugged, his voice rising, taunting. "Matter? You're the one who doesn't matter right now, Elon. Your investors are bailing, your fans are turning, and you're sitting here like a kid who lost his science fair. What's next? Crying to your bots for backup." The crowd roared, the energy a living thing, chaotic and relentless. Musk's eyes darted to the audience, then back to Kimmel, his expression a mix of fury and betrayal. "You're done, Jimmy," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "You don't know what you've started." The threat hung heavy, the studio buzzing with anticipation. Kimmel, unfazed, leaned closer, his words a final dagger. "Started? I'm just finishing what you began, Elon. You built a house of cards, and I'm the gust of wind. How's it feel to watch it all collapse?" Musk's breathing stopped for a moment, his eyes wide, the weight of Kimmel's words crushing what remained of his restraint. The billionaire was at his limit, the final blow seconds away, and the world was watching. waiting for the explosion. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio was a volcano on the verge of eruption. The audience's frenzied energy a tidal wave crashing over. The brutal showdown between Jimmy Kimmel and Elon Musk. Kimmel vs. Musk was a global phenomenon. Clips of Kimmel's savage onslaught and Musk's crumbling defenses flooding every platform, shared by millions gripped by the spectacle. Musk's eyes were wide, his breath frozen. The weight of Kimmel's final taunt. "You built a house of cards, and I'm the gust of wind," crushing his last shred of restraint. The billionaire, once an untouchable icon, was cornered, his empire mocked on live television. Kimmel, his eyes blazing with triumph, leaned closer, his voice a venomous whisper, ready to deliver the killing blow. "How's it feel, Elon?" Kimmel pressed, his tone sharp enough to draw blood. "Your stocks are in the gutter. Your projects are punchlines, and you're sitting here exposed as the guy who promised the stars and delivered a black hole." The audience roared, a mix of cheers and gasps, but Musk's face was a mask of raw fury, his hands trembling as he gripped the chair. "You're wrong," he hissed, his voice cracking with rage. "I've changed the world, and you're just a nobody with a microphone." Kimmel's laugh was cold, cutting. "A nobody? I'm the guy who's got you melting down on national TV. Your world's crumbling, Elon, and everyone's watching you choke." The crowd was on its feet, the energy chaotic, unhinged. Musk's eyes burned, his voice rising to a shout. "You don't get to judge me, Jimmy. You've never risked anything, never built anything. You're a leech, feeding off my failures." Kimmel leaned back, his grin predatory. "Failures? Oh, you've got those in spades. Tesla's a sinking ship. SpaceX is a pipe dream. And don't get me started on your brain chip fiasco. You're not a visionary, Elon. You're a cautionary tale." The audience erupted, the laughter deafening. But Musk's face was crimson, his breathing erratic. "You're done," he snarled, his voice shaking with a mix of rage and desperation. "You'll regret this." Kimmel's eyes narrowed, his voice rising to match the crowd's frenzy. "Regret? The only thing I regret is not having more time to list your flops. You want to talk legacy? Yours is a trail of broken promises and a stock chart that looks like a heart attack. Face it, Elon, you're finished." The studio was a pressure cooker, the audience feeding off the raw hostility. Musk's hands shook violently, his eyes darting to the crowd, then back to Kimmel, his expression a mix of fury and defeat. The billionaire, used to commanding empires, was unraveling, his breaking point reached. With a sudden, explosive motion, he ripped off his microphone, the device clattering to the floor as he stood, his voice a raw shout. "I can't take this anymore." The crowd gasped, the studio frozen in stunned silence as Musk stormed toward the exit, his footsteps echoing. In the chaos, Kimmel, unfazed, rose from his desk, his voice booming over the uproar. "There he goes, folks! The genius who couldn't handle a little heat. Don't worry, Elon, maybe your bots can console you." The audience exploded, cheers and boos colliding. As Musk disappeared off stage, his silhouette swallowed by the shadows, Kimmel turned to the crowd, his grin triumphant, his arms raised in victory. "Well, that's one way to end an interview. Stick around. We've got more show to go." The studio was electric, the audience buzzing with adrenaline as the cameras panned over their ecstatic faces. Social media was ablaze. Kimmel vs. Musk, trending higher than ever, with clips of Musk's dramatic exit and Kimmel's final taunt going viral. The confrontation was over, the billionaire humbled, the host victorious. Kimmel had dismantled Musk's mythos, exposing his vulnerabilities to a global audience. The night belonged to Kimmel, his wit and nerve cementing his triumph. As the show rolled on, the world kept talking, but the story was complete. Musk had fallen, and Kimmel stood tall, the undisputed king of the stage.